Alright guys, I think this is official. I'm going to start streaming now. Not sure what the lag's going to be. So let's go ahead and get this all started. So first, I had to change to a different location because the internet speed where I was currently at was horrible. When I did a internet test, the upload speed, which is how fast I can upload my stuff to you guys, was less than 1 megabyte a second. Like, it was ridiculous, like 0.5, zero point 0.7. So I'm back at my house where I thought I had bad internet, but I'm testing it currently right now, and it is showing that it is currently, well, it's not even showing anything right now, but we were above that 1 to almost 2 megabytes per second mark. So a little bit better. Oh, looks like it's not as good as I thought. So, we're going to give this a shot, hopefully. Hey, Cal, how's it going, buddy? Thank you so much for coming back. I am so sorry, everyone, for the horrible connection that we've been having. So I'm hoping that we won't have the problems that we've been having before. But like I said, this is strictly an audio, so it's mostly a podcast. But we're going to strictly do audio this time because the video is just horrible. And just remember that all this can be and will be uploaded afterwards on YouTube, so you guys can rewatch it. Awesome. Thanks so much, Cal. I appreciate that. Like I said, we are in a different location, so we have a little bit better internet. I'm hoping that this will turn out a little bit better than what we were dealing with earlier. And if we do lose internet connection, just stay tuned, and we will kind of get back to you guys after that. So today, let's go ahead and until we get some people trickling in, if you guys want to go ahead and leave some comments down below, and we'll go and I'll answer some questions that you guys have for me, and then we will be talking about yearly contracts. And just to repeat, like I said, this will be uploaded again, so you guys will be able to listen to this again. I think this is a good one. I have a lot of notes written down of everything that we are going to be talking about, going over today. I have, looking at my Word document, I have about 2¼ pages worth of notes that we are going to be going over. So if you're either looking at starting contracts with clients, or if you're looking at possibly introducing contracts into your business, then that's what we're going to talk about. So the first question, thank you so much, Cal. I really appreciate you sticking it out. How do you go about approaching a business to get a yearly contract? This depends on what kind of client you're going after, because you have commercial, you have residential, and then you have condo associations. So it depends on who you're going after. So let's just take, for instance, a residential person that we can talk about. Let's just talk residential. If they do call you, what I found out is that if they call me, they ask me, what kind of services they're looking for. Say if they're looking for mowing, I tell them currently we only offer yearly contracts, or we offer weekly mowings, and this is something that we'll talk about further once we get into it. And the reason why I offer only weekly mowings and yearly contract is because we were doing bi-weekly, and the problem with bi-weekly is that once you start doing that, it really throws your schedule off, and it's kind of hard to have a steady week unless you have like 1 day a week open, say a Friday, where you have nothing but any kind of side jobs that you can do, and then that's fine with taking bi-weekly. But once you start getting booked up and you want to stay on a strict schedule, I would highly recommend doing weekly, weekly instead of bi-weekly. So to get back to your question, this is something that we are going to talk about in depth, so I'll just kind of keep it short. I found that almost every contract or every condo association, and by far 100% of the commercial accounts, always want contracts. So no matter what, you don't really have to approach them because they will actually want a contract. I have never found a commercial account that has never wanted a contract done. Residentials are a little bit harder because you have to kind of sell that to them, and like I said, we will talk about this later. So approaching them to them, like I said, you just have to be a really good salesman, and just really sell it, because we'll talk about why that is important. The next question is from Thomas Schrader. I think that's how you pronounce your last name. That's kind of a cool last name. Do you do hardscapes such as retaining walls, paver patios, and of If so, how do you figure out what to charge? Yeah, that is something that we are looking at getting into this year. For sure. The guy that I hired last year, he came from a company that he was doing a lot of landscaping installs. So we brought him onto our team to help us get into that, because that's the stuff I really wanted to get into. I do love property maintenance, but I really want to get into landscaping installs, just because that's where my passion is and stuff like that. So I do know how to do retaining walls. I know a little bit about paver patios, but that is a service that we're starting to kind of get into. So I've been starting to read up and get a little bit more knowledgeable about how to, what are the shortcuts around that kind of stuff. I have done a few retaining walls in the past, not so much paver patios. They're not really too popular around here, to be honest. A lot of people around here just want cement slabs, sadly. But that is something that we are looking at getting into, and I do know how to do a little bit of that. So thank you so much for that question. So it looks like we're getting a little bit of people trickling in. So we got 13 people watching. Thank you guys so much for tuning in today. I know that we were having a lot of problems earlier, but like I said, we're in a new location. I actually drove to my local Starbucks trying to connect to their internet because I thought they would have good internet, but it turns out that they don't, so it really sucks. So now I'm back at my house where I surprisingly have better internet. This is from Mike. Do you ever talk with HOA and try to get all the houses in one deal? Yeah, where I live, it's a lot of condo associations because it's a retirement community, and so usually the retirement community, since they're condos, usually you kind of do get the whole package deal, which is really nice. But usually what I tend to do is if I do go into a neighborhood, I do try to, of course, with good, um, we try to do as best as we can with the yards, and so we try to get as many of the clients in one neighborhood as possible. It's worked in the past, but I like to go after condo associations because you basically get all of them. In one location that we work with, there is like 5, 6 condos in this one big area. We currently maintain 2. We were maintaining another one in there, but we lost that a few years ago because of some political reasons, which we can talk about later. So yeah, I do try to talk with the HOA people, and we try to get as much people in one location. That way we're not constantly offloading and loading. Lawn Care Business Success. Hey buddy, how's it going? Guys, want to give a big shout out to Lawn Care Business Success. He is a new YouTube partner of mine. We actually just did an interview the other day on his podcast, so be sure to check out his. He is in my YouTube partner section on the main wall, so be sure to check him out. He has great content, just an amazing guy. He lives up here in the Pacific Northwest where I live. He's in Canada, which I love Canada. So thank you so much, buddy, for tuning in. So Thomas, landscaping has been a lot more profitable for us, just hard to figure out what to charge sometimes. You know what? And that is hard. And there's a couple ways of doing it. There's the sneaky kind of behind the back way, which I don't like, which is basically you call the landscapers in your area up, tell them to come look at either a friend's house and just say, hey, how much would you charge to do this retaining wall? And then you accept bids, and then you can see what their bids are, and then you can kind of compare prices, or you can even call them up, and sometimes they'll let you know what their hourly rate are. That's a sneaky way of doing it. It is one way. I've never done that before. Another way is just getting feedback from your clients, the people that you're talking to. Slowly start raising your prices, and when you're starting to see, because recently we raised our prices because my overhead started getting really high with the guy that we had currently working with us. So I had to raise my prices, and I was noticing that we were getting declined, and people were not accepting a lot of these jobs that we've been doing. So I've been slowly having we let that guy go. He kind of quit / we let him go. He was a good worker, and so that dropped our overhead quite a bit, but I was noticing that as well, where a lot of people were not accepting our bids. So we've been trying to lower our prices, not really lower them, but make them more compatible, or competible. That's the word I'm looking for. And so yeah, that's what we've been doing. And so you kind of have to listen to the market, listen to your clients. One thing I would definitely recommend is if I send all my bids over emails. That way, for sure, I know they received them, and then all that kind of stuff, that they have it right there on hand. So if they do not accept the bid, what I would do is email them back and just say, hey, we understand. Thank you for at least looking into hiring us. May we ask, was it the price that was the problem or not? And just kind of get that feedback. Sometimes it's worth going after those people and asking them about that kind of feedback stuff. So yeah, you got to kind of see how the market's doing and how people are doing that. So looks like we got a good amount of people in. So it's 12:06. Let's go ahead and get started, guys. Thank you so much for tuning in today. All your guys' questions that you're leaving currently right now, I'll be taking after in the Q&A Sunday. So let's get started. So today we are talking about yearly contracts. This is one thing that I have found in my business to be a lifesaver for me. And hold on just one second. Okay. So this has been a lifesaver for me in my business. I've been doing contracts for about 5 years now. I did my first one with my first condo association. My first commercial account was Discount Tire, but we didn't really have a contract. It was more of a paper writing down like, hey, this is what we're doing at this price. Like it wasn't even a contract. So we started doing our first contracts once we took over these two large condo associations. So, like I said, when I first started my business, I was horrible at saving money. I was really bad at it. Basically, if you guys watched my last live video where we talked about, some of the, starting out my company, some of the things that I have dealt with. Sorry, I'm kind of losing track. But basically, I was really bad at saving money at the time, and so we were not having a steady income coming in. So I was able to got contracts from some condo associations I was taking care of, and then we were able to grow from there. So anyways, let's go ahead and jump right into it. I do have a list here of everything that we're going to talk about. These are the subject titles that we're going to talk about is what are yearly contracts and are they for you? Why should you have contracts? Pros and cons. Contract yearly prices, how to figure those out. 8-month contracts compared to 12-month contracts, which is better. What should be in your contracts, things that are left out of contracts, and who makes up the contracts or who writes them down. So let's go ahead and get started. Big shout out and thank you to everyone watching. I really appreciate it. And remember, go ahead and leave your questions below, and then we will get to those at the end of the subject. So first thing is, what are yearly contracts? Well, yearly contracts are basically a signed document between you and the client, and basically it is a rundown of what are your duties on the property that you're maintaining. So what are your responsibilities, and then what are their responsibilities to do? Their responsibilities are pretty simple. It's basically just paying you on time and keeping up with a couple of things like, making sure that all of the stuff is picked up in the yard, that there's no one outside, and that the yard is, when you show up, you can start doing it. Now, there's tons of different contracts. We'll talk about those later. But basically, are they for you? Now, I have never met a commercial client who has never accepted yearly contract. Almost every commercial client, whoever you work for, is going to ask for yearly contract because they want to know exactly what they're getting out of the deal and what your responsibilities are. Same with condo associations. They are also going to want those. Residential yards, they are a little bit difficult to kind of get yearly contracts to sign with. You kind of have to sell them. It's not, not everyone does it. So that, residential is a little bit harder to get yearly contracts for. They don't feel, they don't want to be trapped in that 12-month contract because they feel like they can't get out, which is what we will talk about later. So that's what yearly contracts are. They're really simple. If you don't know how to do them, they can be you could be scared to do them because you don't know what to do, and you have to be really particular with wording because you can hurt yourself if you don't. So why should you have contracts? The pros and cons. So we'll start out with the pro. The pro of having a yearly contract is basically you're putting down, what is included with the whole price. Basically, what are your responsibilities if you take over a yard? Say, let's talk about property maintenance. You start a new contract with this person. It has a rundown of exactly, okay, this is what we're responsible for. This is what you're paying us for. and basically anything else that's not included, you're not paying us for. And it's straight to the point, and just nice and clear. That's what I like about contracts. Another great thing about having contracts is that if you ever have to go to court for these people for not paying you, you have this signed documentation from them saying that they agreed to pay you this amount a month for a 12-month period. And say if they are 2-3 months behind and they say, I'm not going to pay you, I already paid that, and you show them proof. If you do have to go to court, small claims court, which I've had to do in the past, you have documented proof saying that this person said they were going to pay me this amount a month, and they have not been. And guess what? You're most likely going to win because they have their signature, you have the date, and all that information. Another big pro to having a yearly contract is that it is a steady income throughout the whole entire year. If you're really bad at saving, like me, when I first started out my company, this really does help keep you busy through, keep a steady income throughout the whole year. So if you're really bad at saving, it's a real, that will help you quite a bit. If you have no work in the wintertime, like around here, snow removal is not big at all. We don't get snow like you guys do on the East Coast or sometimes in the Midwest. It just does not happen here. So things always die down here in the wintertime, and there's almost nothing to do. Really, the only thing to do is tree pruning, any kind of bed cleanup and that kind of information, that kind of stuff. So having the yearly contracts keeps that steady income throughout the wintertime. So if you do have employees that if you want to keep a full, keep them working full time through the year, you can now do that because you have these yearly contracts where you have a steady income coming in a year. One thing that's really nice is that when you sign all these contracts in the beginning of the year, you basically know exactly, okay, this is how much we're planning on making this year, and then you can kind of set a budget from that. So say if you're making $100,000 a year in contracts, you can say, okay, cool. Now we can sit there and say, this is what we're making for sure, at least off this. Now we can work our budget off that. And then in the summertime, any other side work that we take on is just an add-on, and it works for you. So if you're a real big budget person, you're going to really like contracts because that way you can kind of keep steady on what's coming in. So yeah, and like I said, if there's no work in the wintertime, this keeps you really busy. If you're doing snow removal, you can still do the yearly contracts. You probably just add in the snow removal later, but we'll talk about that in another subject. Now, probably one of the biggest cons about having a contract is mostly towards residential yards. Like I said, not every residential person will want a contract. A lot of them don't like it, and this is where you have to become a really good salesperson. Because if you like yearly contracts, you want to try to push that as much as you can because, like I said, it helps you out from the pros that I just talked about. So one of the biggest things is that they feel like they're stuck in this 12-month contract and they can't get out, which we will talk about a cancellation clause at the end. So you really have to sell it to them. What are the pros and cons about why they should sign a contract with you? And like I said, become a good salesman. That's the biggest thing. Big tip. This is for whether actually, especially for if you're taking over a yearly contract. Always charge a cleanup fee or at least try to do the best you can before you start any work on a new property. This has happened to us in the past where, actually it just happened to us last year, where we signed a contract with a new client, and what happened was we didn't charge them a cleanup fee like we usually do. The yard was actually already in pretty good shape, but it was the time of the year in the fall when all the shrubs needed to be trimmed. The trees were going to be needing trim as well, and a little bit of bed cleanup with the weeds and stuff. And so because they were a neighbor of mine, and so we knew them, I decided, you know what, I'm not going to charge them a cleanup fee, which I shouldn't have done. Because then what happened was, right when I signed the contract with them, they looked out their front window and they said, hey, see that hedge right there? And I said, yeah. They're like, yeah. When can you trim that? When can you get to that? And I thought, we literally just signed the contract and you're already asking me for extra work. And it wasn't until about a week or two after that, they did the same thing. The gentleman called me up and he said, hey, when are you guys going to trim my shrubs? Because they all need to be trimmed. And it was really frustrating because this guy was already a high maintenance to begin with at the beginning. And so I had to tell him, I gave him two options. I said, we always charge a cleanup fee before we take over any property, and we didn't do that for you. So I said, I'll give you two options. One, I will give you a cleanup fee to trim all the shrubs at once like you're wanting, or two, you can wait a month till at least we receive the first or second month payment of the yearly contract before we do any extra work. Because I told them what happens, and this is why you want to charge a cleanup fee, is because you don't want to sign a contract and do all this cleanup, trim all the shrubs, clean all the beds, do all the weeding, all the mowing, fertilizing, all this kind of stuff, and then they cancel after the first month. So that's a lot of money you just put into a property, and then that's how you get taken advantage of. That's why I highly recommend you charge a cleanup fee. Really big. So we can talk. If you guys have any questions, about that subject, we can talk about later. So now we're going to talk about contract yearly prices. A lot of people want to know, how do you find out what your monthly price is for the year? And basically, it's really simple. All you do is whatever work is included in your contract. Say if you're strictly doing mowing, weed whacking, blowing, weed control. Let's just keep it simple. Those three things. What you're going to do is you're going to add up each individual thing. So mowing, you're going to find out, it's different in the south compared to the north because of the, warm and cold season grasses. Say we mow around 40 times, a little over 40 times a year. So what I do is I go 40 mowings times X amount of whatever I charge per mowing for that yard, or whatever your hourly rate is. Hopefully you have an hourly rate. Then you do the weed whacking. Okay, it's going to take about this much time, so we're going to do that as well. Okay, say if you did fertilizing, okay, it's going to cost this much in labor, this much in fertilizer, so add that. So you add all these prices up and then divide it by 12, and there is your monthly rate. Sometimes I do recommend adding at least a little bit on top of that, because there is going to be a little extra things that you're going to want to do, and that's kind of your profit. So be sure to kind of add a little bit to that monthly price. So say if it's $235, round it up to $250, or if it's $265, maybe $275 or $300. You want to round it up a little bit to give yourself a little bit of wiggle room, and that's what I recommend. And then, like I said, so just divide it by 12. That's your monthly. And like I said, it's a lot easier if you have set, like even prices, like $225. I personally go by $25 increments. So it's either $225, $250, $275, $300. I never go like $235 or like those weird numbers. The one advantages of going at those weird numbers is that if you're in a really competitive market, and say you're doing a property and it's $150 a month, and kind of everyone either knows about it or everyone's paying the same. Say if you go $145 or even $140, a little bit less, but it's a weird number. That way, if people were to try to overbid you or bid that, oh, I'm sure it's around that $150 mark, because that's what a lot of people do, you have that kind of buffer where the client's going to be like, oh, they're $5 cheaper, $10 cheaper, I'll just stick with them. And that kind of helps you out a little bit. Whatever you do, just don't take it out of your profit margin. That's what you really want to avoid and stay away from. That way it kind of helps you guys out. So next, to get clients to sign contracts with you, like I said before, you have to sell. This is where your salesperson skills come in. I would highly recommend reading books on how to sell. I listen to tapes almost every other day from a trusted source. His name is Dave Anderson, an amazing guy. He is one of those politically incorrect kind of people. He tells you how it is. I absolutely love him. And check out his books. He has ebooks on iTunes that you can download in the iTunes store, and you can listen to them. And that's what I listen to when I work. Sometimes I'll listen to music and I'll switch over, but every now and then I'll start listening to business people while I work. That way I'm learning, and he tells you how to sell and some really good pointers, and I highly recommend you guys listen to him, or at least someone in that selling field that has some good credibility. So you're going to become a salesperson. Tell them what the advantages are of having those yearly contracts. If they don't want a contract, then try to get them on a weekly mowing schedule like we talked about earlier. You don't really want to do bi-weekly mowing schedules because it completely throws your schedule off. If you're starting out, take whatever you can. But once you get to that point in your business where you can kind of say no to this client, no to this one, yes to this one, and become a little bit more pickier, go with a weekly mowing. It's, you make more money. It's easier on your equipment. You can keep the yard up to date and looking good. So push that weekly mowing. First push the contract and then push the weekly mowing. And then if you can't, do bi-weekly. So yearly contract prices, some of the advantages of having them a set price is that you will not be bothering the client throughout the year for every service that needs to be done at a time. Basically, if you try to include as much, I try to include as much as I can in my yearly contract. The reason why I do that is for this specific reason. Say the weeds in the beds need to be sprayed, because I'm licensed to spray pesticides in the state of Washington. Say if the weeds need to be done. Well, if that's not included in your yearly contract, then what you have to do is you have to go to the person, either email them, call them, knock on the door, and say, hey, the weeds need to be done. If you want me to, I can get you a bid to do that. Okay, that sounds great. So you send the bid off however way you do it. I recommend email. And sometimes they get back to you fast, sometimes they don't. And say if they take a week, 2 weeks, 3 weeks to accept your bid, which has happened in the past, the weeds are out of control, and now you're spraying more pesticide, or now you created yourself more work because you waited so much time. If you include all the services in your yearly contract with that price, you don't have to wait on them. Say if you see a little bit of weed coming up, a little bit of weed, some small weeds coming up, guess what? Now you can go in there, spray them whenever you want. If the leaves in the fall time need to be picked up, you don't have to constantly keep going to these clients, giving them bids, because bids take way too much time to put together. If you have it in your contract, you get it done when it needs to get done. And basically, you shove the piles while they're small is the greatest analogy I can think of. So, try to include as much in your yearly contract. They know one thing about the yearly contract, they know exactly what they're paying for throughout the whole year. So if you're working with budgets, like we talked about earlier, their yards look perfect and kept throughout the whole entire year. I think I mislabeled this thing because we were first talking about yearly prices. These are some of the advantages of having contracts now. They don't have to worry about when things get done because it's all placed in the contract, like I was just saying. And one thing I do not recommend, some people in the past that I've had contracts with, they want you to place your hourly wage in the contract, because if there's any extra work that needs to get done, they can call you or hire you at that hourly rate. I highly recommend you do not do this, and if you can, use your own contracts. If you don't know how to do contracts, or you haven't done in the past, use the ones that they provide for you. But we'll talk about that later. But don't put your hourly rate in your contracts. This is the reason why. Last year, at one of my condo associations, we signed a contract, and at the time, I was charging $35 an hour because I was just by myself. I didn't have any person, and my overhead was really low. So in the contract, I think it was $35 or $25 an hour. This is like right when I just started out, so it was quite a while ago. So this was actually a few years ago, a couple years ago. And what happened was, I need to renew my contract with them, because basically what they told me was, hey, we don't want to keep re-signing these contracts every single year. So can we just sign a contract, and basically this will go on forever until we either cancel or we need to renew? And I said, yeah, that sounds great. That way we don't have to keep doing that all the time. Well, the mistake that I made of doing that was that I had my old hourly rate in the contract. So 2 years ago, when we were looking at doing snow removal for them, I sent them a bid for the snow removal saying, hey, if it does snow, here's my price. And I guess they didn't like my price because it was pretty high, but my overhead and my hourly rate had changed from when we first did. So the gentleman said, hey, we looked in your contract and it says that your hourly rate is $25 an hour. Why don't we just charge you that hourly rate instead of this bid you sent us? So I told him, well, no, that was a bid we sent a long time ago, or that was an hourly rate we used to have like 2-3 years ago. Our hourly rate has changed now. It's now a lot more, nor have we ever done anything at an hourly rate. And that's why I had to tell this guy, we have never done any work for you at an hourly rate. It's always been by bid. And he was trying to push this on me so much because he knew that he can get a way better deal at an hourly rate compared to a bid price. So basically, a few emails back and forth, I strictly told them, we are never doing hourly rate. Please don't bother me again. It's always by bids, and that's how we will always do it. And he dropped it from there. So don't put your hourly rate in the bid. Even if they ask it, put either no answer or just say that's kind of confidential. We don't show that. Because like I said in one of my previous videos a while back, if you tell people what your hourly rate is or what you're charging for a job, that's basically like giving away your credit card information or your social security number, and then you're getting, identity theft, basically. So please keep that as much as you can. So yeah, anyways, so we're going to go on to the next thing, 8-month contract compared to 12-month contract, which is better. Um, Almost every commercial account, and especially condo association, pushes the 12-month contracts because they want their stuff to look good throughout the whole entire year. I do not recommend the 8-month contract. We do have one client that's 8-month, and I try to push the 12-month, and they won't do it. So we settled with the 8-month, and these are the reasons why you want to push a 12-month contract. The 12-month contracts keep that steady income throughout the whole entire year, like I talked about, where the 8-month doesn't, and it kind of sucks. With the 8-month contract, those 4 months that you're not working on that property, that you're not maintaining, the property can really get out of hand. So, for instance, the one place that we maintain that's only an 8-month contract, it starts in April and ends in December. So we have January, February, March, April. Those 4 months of not doing anything. And the problem with it is that sometimes around here, what we've seen in the past 2 years is that, let's see, the season starts a little earlier. Sometimes it starts in February, sometimes it starts in March. So by the time we get to April, when the contract starts, the grass is already 4 inches tall, the weeds are out of control, and the place just looks like a dump. And like I said, that's where you want to throw in that cleanup fee, which is what we do. So I always, that's why I'm trying to push them to go to 12 months. If, say it is at 8-month, say it's 8-month at X amount of dollars, try to push the 12-month and just say, hey, why don't we take that amount of, in the 8 months and just go a little bit less in the 12 months. Divide that out. So basically you're coming up with the same amount per year, but it changes per month. But that way you're getting paid throughout the months. And like I said, otherwise you're going to have to charge a big cleanup fee, and it gets really, really bad. And then you're spending all this time cleaning up properties and, all that kind of stuff. So whatever you do, go for the 12-month contract. If you can't go for the 12-month, go for an 8th. Take whatever you have to do best for you. And like I said, go for that 12-month. So what is in these contracts? Now, there are different kind of contracts, which we'll talk about later. But specifically what we're talking about right now is more related to property maintenance. So what is in the contract? The first is basically a list of duties and your responsibilities on your end of what you will perform on the property, such as mowing, fertilizing, pruning, hedge trimming, spraying, all that kind of stuff, etc. And you're going to want to go into details about, for instance, mowing. You want to sit there and say, we will be doing bi-weekly mowings from, this is like what's in our contract, from November to March is bi-weekly mowings. And then when the season starts in April, from April to September, those are weekly mowings. So you want to be specific. Like I said, you want to be as specific as possible, but not too much where it can come and bite you in the butt. So a list of work and responsibilities. Next, you're going to want a cancellation clause. I've kind of worked with, over the past 5 years, different cancellation clause. The best one is a 30-day notice of cancellation by either party. Basically, they sit there and say, hey, we're not happy with your work, or even you can cancel the contract and say, which I've had to done in the past, saying you're annoying, which you don't tell them that, but just basically say, I can't do your property anymore, so we're going to give you 30 days. And what's nice about that 30 days is that it gives them time to find another client, another person to hire, and then it kind of gives you time to kind of get things together as well. So that's one of the most popular one, is a 30-day notice. I was doing that at first, and then basically what happens and what sucks is that depending on when you sign the contract, say you sign it in April and they cancel in February, well, guess what? All the money that you should be making is usually in the wintertime. That's where you kind of get your money back, because you put so much time in the summertime, and in the wintertime, you're not doing as much because you did it all in the summer. So if they cancel that if you're working from April to September, and then they cancel in September, basically you're kind of gypping yourself out, which is one of the downfalls too of having yearly contracts. So what I started doing was, basically it was a 12-month contract, saying if you cancel anytime within these 12 months, you have to pay the remaining X amount of months. So say if we signed it in January and they canceled in March, that means they would have to pay me from April all the way to December, and I'm not doing any of the work. That was one of the cancellation clauses I had about 4 years ago. And surprisingly, I had some of my residential clients, because they personally knew me, they trusted me, so they didn't mind it, and they actually signed the contract. So it's fine with residential people if they know you personally and trust you, but condo associations and commercial clients do not like that at all, and that's not going to float their boat, if you know what I mean. Like, they will not like it. So I would recommend the 30-day notice on either party. And if you can, if you're constantly getting screwed over by the same people, then do the pay year in full cancellation clause like I was just discussing. The next thing you want to do is you're going to want to have in your contract a due date, saying that this is when this payment is due by. I also have it in my invoices that we send out. And basically, you want to have a late fee charge saying, you, like, for instance, in our contracts, we say you must pay 30 days once you receive the invoice or once it was sent out. And that's why I like sending everything through email, because it sends out that day. We can sit there and say, okay, we know you received it that day, so 30 days from that day that you received it, you have to pay us. Where in the mail, sometimes they can sit there and say, oh, well, the mail was late, or mail's not open on Sundays, or, they have all those excuses, and you never know exactly when they get it. So you want to have a 30-day, you must pay by. If not, you charge X amount. I personally charge $25 late fees a month. If they don't pay me after that 30 days, it's a $25 late fee. I have waived it in the past, but I don't like pushing that. I do to let people know you must pay me on time. If you don't, you're going to get charged a late fee, because, I got my bills and my stuff to pay too. I'm doing my responsibilities, which is taking care of your property. Your responsibility is just paying me. So you want to have, some people do 10% of whatever the invoice total is. Some people do a flat fee. Just do whatever works best for you and what your clients like. But basically, that late fee is there just to get people to start paying you on time, because you don't want to deal with that. So we're going to go to the next one, which is your contract duration. That's really simple. You want to say contract starts on this day, ends on this day, and since it's a 12 months, since say it's January 1st, 2017, ends December 31st, 2017 as well. So you got a year contract. One thing I would try to do is try to get all your contracts to begin and end on the same date. So usually beginning of January is the best. So say if you sign a client in the middle of the year, so July, I would say, hey, we'll sign a contract from July 1st to May 31st, whatever the date is the next year. But I would tell them, I like to get all my contracts on the same date. So it's a year contract, but I would like to renew the contract January 1st. That way you can kind of get everything set on the same date. So that way it's easier for you to remember, because if you have if you have 50, 70, whatever amount of contracts all on different dates, it is so hard to remember, oh crap, we got to renew that. That expired 2 weeks ago. You know what I mean? If you have everything set on the 1st of January, okay, cool, we can send out all new contracts on the same exact day, and that way you guys know when they end, when they start. So I would try to push that and just explain that to your clients. And if you're honest with your clients, they will be gracious to you as well. I've always been straight and forward with my clients, so I never had a problem with that. Another couple of things you should include with your contracts, like I said, we're talking about property maintenance, is if you fertilize, like I said, this is where you want to get specific. Specify the amount of times you're fertilizing per year. So say 3 fertilizers per year, and say we're talking about 1 iron, or not iron, but any kind of, iron for like moss out or weed control or whatever. You want to be specific with that, because if you do your fertilizing in the spring, summer, and fall, say they want another fertilizing in between that, you can sit there and say, well, in our contract, it sits there and says 3 times. If you want a 4th time, we will have to charge you for that. That's where you want to be very specific, because your clients will try, some people will try to take advantage of that. So the next thing that we're going to talk about is things that are left outside of contracts that people, especially new people, don't kind of think about to add in. The first thing I would recommend, and a lot of you guys probably know this but didn't think about adding them, is picking up dog poop. This is by far the worst and annoying thing I talked about. My buddy Julio from Lawn Care Success that I was telling you guys about, Him and I actually had a good conversation. Be sure to check out that podcast because we did talk about this. You want to add that in with your contract by saying, if the poop is not picked up, I will charge you X amount per pile. I will charge you X amount per week, or whatever you decide to do. Another thing you guys can do is actually add that service in with your contract, saying, if you don't want to pick up the poop, we'll do it when we show up, but we're charging you X amount of money. So that's one thing a lot of people forget to include in contracts, or don't even really think about, because like you're stepping in it, it's getting in your mowers, but you don't think to add that into your contract. That way they know. So I would definitely add that into your contracts, and remember that. If you're taking care of condo associations, and like I said, this was all discussed in my podcast with Julio, um, you want to have, if you're doing condo associations, you want to strictly talk to one person. I maintain 3 large condo associations, and one, there's well over 50, 60 people in one condo. And that's my smaller one. There's one that we have over, I think, close to 180 people or over 200 people. And then there's another one where we have closer to the 80, almost 90 people as well. Now, the problem with these condos, especially in an elderly community that I deal with, the biggest issue that I have with them is that every person wants something done a certain way. One person wants a shrub trimmed one way, the other one wants one trimmed another way, and it gets really annoying. And basically, the property people hired you to trim it the way you think it should be trimmed. Now, if it's a smaller condo association, usually you can tend to do it the way the client wants. But what I would recommend is, usually condos have a landscaping chairman, especially in my area. I'm not sure if it's the same elsewhere. And you want to specifically tell that one person, you're the only one that contacts me. You should be the only one calling me, emailing me, and talking to me and stopping me with any questions regards to the landscaping or the property maintenance. If you have way too many people coming to you, like I said, in one condo, if we have over 100 people coming saying, can you mow this grass higher? Can you mow this grass lower? Can you not mow the grass? You know what I mean? Like, if you have so many people coming to you, it puts way too much stress on you, and it's so annoying. So in your contract, state that there should only be one person contacting you for for your services or any kind of questions. And this has happened to me in the past. It still happens. We still try to, get a little bit harder on it and say, stop doing this. And we're not to the point where we're going to start charging fees, but we possibly might if they continue to get to it. And occasionally, you have the new people that move in that don't know these. So be sure to have them send it out usually in condo associations or homeowners associations. They have the CC&Rs or whatever that says that these are the rules for the neighborhood. Have them include your landscaping or lawn care rules as well, saying, do not stop the lawn care person. Do not email them, call them, or whatever. So be sure to try to include that as well. That's a big tip. Which comes to my next thing. Homeowners cannot stop you while working to ask questions. This happens to us even now. Like, we've been maintaining our large condos. One, we're on our second, or almost, this is our 3rd year with them. The other one, we're on our 4th year, and another one, we're on our 3rd. We still get stopped by the same people, and I constantly tell them, you're not allowed to stop us. And there's really no way around it. Before, we were stopping to be nice, but if you're nice, they start taking advantage of that. So one thing we were starting to do was we were just ignoring them. I would be mowing, someone would walk out, I would just turn around and just mow somewhere else and just ignore that whole section. The only problem with that is sometimes you forget to do it, and it becomes a hassle. So, don't like that. So be sure to put that in your contracts. Like I said, not everyone's going to honor it. They are still going to stop you like they do to me, to ask the most stupidest questions. There was one time I was mowing at my condo, and there was one lawn we missed. We skipped it because either the dog was outside or something like that. Or it was on the other side of the street and we haven't even gotten to it. And one person stopped me and said, hey, when are you going to get to that lawn? And I said, seriously? We haven't even gotten over there yet. And the problem with having people come out and stop and talk to you is 2 big reasons. For one, it's a huge safety reason, because like with the Edge of Pros, those things throw rocks everywhere. If you're side discharging on a mower, that shoots grass blades everywhere, and also can hit a rock and stuff. So it's a huge safety issue. So you don't want these people stopping you, because not only that, it's a safety issue, but then you have to stop, turn off all your equipment, so you stop the momentum that you build up. You have to sit there and ask these questions. Sometimes it's really short and fast. Sometimes these people want to sit there and talk forever because they have nothing to do. And it just slows down productivity, and I don't like that. And it bothers me, especially if you're on your mower, because you have to stop the blades, turn off the engine, wait for them, sit there and talk, pull out your headphones. It's such an annoying thing. And if you're constantly having 2, 3, 4 people stopping you a day in the same within an hour or a few hours, it gets really annoying really fast. So put that in your condo association that homeowners are not allowed to stop you unless it's that one main person. Also, so the next thing is add in a section of duty/work, your responsibilities, or actually, sorry, add in a section that is not your responsibilities. So, for instance, say if it's snow removal, mulch install, breaking of irrigation systems, installing plants, removal of plants is another one. You want to be sure to do that. And all that kind of stuff. Be sure you have that specified in there, because if you don't, they'll sit there and say, hey, can you take out that shrub? And you'll sit there and say, no, it's in my contract and I have to charge you for that. So that's another one of the things that I forgot that's in my contracts that I have, is that any removal or installing of shrubs is automatically a separate bid or a separate charge. So another thing you want to have in there is a minimum charge. I would highly recommend this as well. That way people don't stop and ask you for the stupidest things. And, you can't sit there and give bids to everyone all the time. Sometimes it works, but if you're busy, want to go, you can't sit there and just give all these bids to everyone, So add in like I said, a minimum charge for any services that you do. The next thing we're going to talk about is trash pickup. You want to be sure to add this in there as well, unless they ask you to include that in with your bid. But other than that, what happens in our condos is that the trash people come, and they when they go and throw it in their trash bin, sometimes trash like paperwork flies out and it goes all over the condo. Well, you don't want to be your responsibility to tracking all this trash down all over the whole place. If anything, that could be a separate bid, or if they ask, just say that's not in our contract. I'm really sorry. If it's something fast and easy you can pick up, then do it. But other than that, be sure to include that. Another big thing this is something you should be talking about the homeowners when you sign with them is, like I was talking about earlier, people cannot, or you cannot start work, or you cannot do any kind of work on the property unless all animals and humans are in sight. Basically anything that is living is a living person or whatever. This is a big thing. Like I said, it's a huge safety reason. Reasons why I say this was actually just about a month or two ago, my employee, I think it was just a month, my employee was weed whacking at our condo, and with the Edge of Pro, the throttle cable got stuck, hit a rock, and shattered someone's window. I've done it in the past. I've talked about how I had 2 Toro Turfmasters. One of them, two blades broke off in the middle of using them, and then one actually flew off and hit a building. Actually, now that I think about it, the window that my employee just shattered a month ago was the same place where the mower blade broke off, flung, and hit right next to it as well. So don't start any work unless all animals are off the property, and the same with people. And actually, now that I think about it, the reason why it's big for dogs, especially they like to bite you. I had one client that he had a dog in his backyard, and I flippin' hated this dog. I seriously could not wait for this dog to die, and I'm a huge dog person. But this dog would actually come up and bite you in the shin. So what would happen is sometimes he wasn't even home, or he was deaf, so he couldn't hear us pull up. We would be mowing, and this dog would be in one side of the corner of the property because he was scared of the mower. Once you turned your back to him, he would actually run up behind you and try to bite you. So I was sitting there constantly fighting with this dog, kicking at it. There's one time I was spraying it with a hose. It gets so annoying. And like I said, it just slows down productivity. And you have to work around these animals that are trying to either bite you or kill you. So be sure to add that in with your contract as well. One thing to add in is parking lot cleanup, if that's your responsibility or not. Usually in contracts, I always include this as well. That way they don't, like I said, they don't sit there and say, of course, clean up whatever mess you make, but not the whole entire parking lot. Like we take care of a Costco here in my local area. Luckily, that's maintained. The cleaning up the parking lots is maintained by a separate company. But if it wasn't for us, then we would be sitting there for hours blowing off this whole parking lot cleaning it up. So be sure to specify that as well. One thing to add in is if you're taking care of shrubs, have a detailed time of when the shrubs and how many times they're going to get done. So usually it's kind of difficult because some shrubs are trimmed 2 times a year, some are trimmed 3-4 times a year. We've had that happen. But the reason why this is a big deal, and the same with trees, a detailed time when trees are done. The reason why this is a big deal, I was maintaining a client's yard, and basically we were getting so booked up, and I was not making a lot of profit from this client, so I decided to drop her, and I said, hey, we're going to cancel the contract with you. And at the time, I was so behind on work that I just said I have to cancel today, even though we had a 30-day cancellation clause. And she said, well, hey, you have a 30-day cancellation clause. You need to respect that or honor that. And I said, you know what? You're right. I will honor that, and I'm sorry. We'll give you 30 days. So what the homeowner did was she said, okay, since you're canceling on me, I want you to trim all the shrubs. The trees in the back need to be trimmed. The mole mounds need to be taken care of. And what's nice was in my contract, it said that the trees, because they were fruit trees you trim in the wintertime. So I told her, I said, well, for one, it says in my contract that the fruit trees or certain trees will be done at the time when they're supposed to be trimmed. So you don't trim fruit trees in the spring or even in the fall time, before they, when they have their fruit. So I told her, I said, we're not doing that. I said, if you're going to sit there and try to take advantage of me being nice to you and honoring our contract, don't sit there and add things that are not included in the contract. So having us prune the trees at that one time, at the wrong time, I told her no. She also wanted us to take care of these mole mounds, which we get, which is not in my contract. So I told her, I said, if you're going to take advantage of us, we're not going to do any of this work, and we will cancel our contract right now because there's no fee if you cancel early or whatever like that. So be sure to add in detail times for the trimming of the trees and shrubs. Another thing is insects. If there's ant hills or roaches or whatever like that, we don't have roaches up here, but if you do have that, be sure to add that in there as well. Because there's at the condos we had one time where they're like, oh, there's an ant hill over here, and I was like, we can't, I'm not licensed to spray them or kill them in my state of Washington, nor do I want to get in trouble. So I told them I can't do that. So be sure to add that in with your contract. The last thing that I have on here is irrigation systems. The reason why I have that, it is our responsibility to fix any irrigation systems if we break them. That, I will replace anything I break. That's what we do. The reason why I'm talking about this is because we were working at a local bank here, and we were working for them, and then the company that we were working for basically got bought out, and so now we're working with the actual bank to hire us, not a middleman. So the gentleman I was talking to, since we were already maintaining it, I said, hey, I'd like to sign a year contract with you. And he said, sounds great. So he said the bid was fine. He says, but we want you to include flowering and then any irrigation system under 6 feet to replace, which meant if someone drives over the lawn because they're either drunk or stupid and breaks the whole irrigation pipe system under the ground, we would have to fix that under my price, the set price I did. And I said, that ain't gonna work. And he even told me, oh yeah, that's pretty common for some of the contractors that we take care of. And be sure to catch these people BS. They will try to screw you over as much as you can. So I sat there and said, I have never heard a cancellation, or I'm sorry, not a cancellation. I have never heard of a landscaper taking over the irrigation system if anything breaks from someone else, like vandalism. That is, I said, we are not including that. I haven't heard anything back from them. So we'll see how that works. But be sure to include that as well. Like I said, you want to be very specific. So we have 2 more subjects. Sorry for taking so long, guys. Hopefully this is some good information to you guys. And it seems like we have some good people watching and really liking this. So we got 2 more things, then we'll get to your guys' questions. So the next thing is, who makes the contracts? Who writes them? Well, there are some either middleman companies like property maintenance companies, some commercial accounts, and condo associations. Some of them will provide the contracts for you. So that has happened in the past for us. We've had these middleman people, like, for instance, not Home Advisor, but companies like them where they'll actually send us the contract saying this is what you want you to do. And it's basically, that's all written by an attorney. It's all written by their lawyer. So it's all, it's all very specified. So sometimes you can use their contracts. You want to try to use your contracts as much as you can. The reason why is because you know your contracts. You should know exactly what's included with them and what's not. And if you don't read through these contracts, you can really get screwed over. One of the guys that I listened to named Ed Flanagan, he's a really good. He had like I think he sold his landscaping company for $4 million. He was in business for almost for over 40 years. Be sure to check him out. Really intelligent guy. I have his tapes. He talked about how in one of the contracts that these people wanted him to sign, they had a clause in there where the people can cancel any time and not have to pay you for the landscaping work that you did, which is a big deal. You can really get screwed over. And so he basically told them, he says, yeah, you guys need to change that. Otherwise, we're not signing your contract. So just remember, you can ask these people, change this part of the contract, because I don't like that. And be sure to read over the whole contract so you are not screwing yourself over. Just this last year, we were doing an install for for this one guy that we were working with, a contractor that builds houses. And I read his contract, and it seemed fine. And for the install work, we signed a contract that says that basically there's a 1-year warranty on everything that we did. So we will cover our work for 1 year, and if anything breaks or goes wrong, we will come in and fix it for free. Now, I read that, but what I didn't read, because I guess I read it too fast, was it really said 1 year from when the house sold. So say if the house didn't sell for 2 years, well, the 1-year contract wouldn't start until the date that that house sold, and then the year starts there. So I could have really screwed myself over. Luckily, I stopped all work for this guy, and depending on what would happen, I would not honor that, because this guy was an absolute jerk, and I would never do work for him again. So be sure to please read the whole contract, whether it's if it's someone given theirs. Now, if you do receive contracts from these commercial guys or from condo associations, whatever, I would highly recommend keep them, because you can use those as a template, and then you can make your own contract based off of this. I've received well over 4 or 5 contracts from several people, and I've actually my contract that I write with them is made from little snippets of these different contracts, and basically you can put them together. One of them was so detailed. Clearly, it was written by the guy's attorney or lawyer. It was so in depth. It was almost confusing for me, so I didn't want to use that, because if I don't even know what it means, I can screw myself over with my own contracts. So if you can, try to keep contracts from other people. That way you can kind of use them. Where can you find contracts if you're looking at doing them? There are plenty of websites on Google. Just type in lawn care maintenance contracts. Some people have templates. Some people actually post their own. Eventually, I might post mine up. I don't want to currently do that now, because I got to watch out for, in my local area, because there are guys in my local area that watch my YouTube videos and know my stuff. So I can't give out too much information. I have to kind of watch my back. But you can easily find them online. I actually, when I did my install contracts last year, because I didn't have install contracts, I actually found install contract on Google, and I used that, and I just changed some of the wording, added my name and information in there, and I basically came up with my own contract. So all this information's out online, so just just research it and look for it. So like I said, read the whole contract. If there's something that you don't like in it, you can ask for requests to change the wording. That way you're not screwing yourself over. You can get ideas from landscapers, lawn care professionals online. Once you get really big in your company and you're starting to do $100,000, $1 million installs, or a lot of money, I would start looking for an attorney or a lawyer to start writing up your contracts, because that's where you can really screw yourself over. Because these big companies will, they usually try to screw over the little guys. I've almost gotten screwed over a few times, but luckily with my contracts and being a little smart in certain ways, I was able to avoid that. So the last thing we're going to talk about is what kind of contracts are there and how many can you have? Well, you can have as many as you want. The popular contracts that you have is, landscaping install contracts. You want to have one for snow removal. You want to have one for property maintenance, and then also landscaping design. You want to have that separate. All are different. All have different wordings. They all have the same meaning, which is basically these are my, um, you know, what I will be doing for you, what you will be doing for me, kind of thing. And so basically, the outlines are still the same, but the wording is completely different for each individual thing. But basically, you can just use the main template that we talked about earlier, what's included, what to include, and then go from there. Like I said, there's probably going to be a different few things for snow removal that I didn't cover, because since I don't do snow removal, we'll have to get that information from someone else. And then same with landscape and design. But basically, like I said, you just don't want to screw yourself over. Be sure to read over everything. So, all right, guys, that is our our subject on yearly contract, and we are about 1 hour even. So this is actually kind of perfect. So now we're going to get to your guys' questions. So we're going to start back. It looks like we got quite a lot. So thank you, everyone, for tuning in. I really appreciate it. So now it's time to get to your questions. I don't know what the lag time is, so we're just going to go ahead and start. So the one that we left off is from Mo Better Lawn Service. Does anyone use Square readers? This wasn't directed to me. This is actually something I've been looking into because we're looking at starting to accept credit cards as well. So there's a local landscaper that I talked to in my local area that he just started doing accepting credit cards, and I was asking him about it. I forgot what service he used, but there is Squarespace, or Square is a real big popular one. Another one is, I think, Google Pay, or I think Apple's coming out with one. There's like a lot of new ones, but you have to watch them because each one's different. I would recommend watching some videos about the pros and cons for each one. That way you're not completely screwing yourself over, because some charge you a sliding fee plus a percentage of whatever the fee is. Some charge you a monthly fee. So just read into it. When I get more information, I'll be sure to check that out for you, and we'll do a video on that. Let's see. So I'm not sure if that was a question. Kaysen Williams. Hey, Jason. Hey, buddy. How's it going? Thank you so much for tuning in. Really appreciate it. This is from Ryan. I don't have contracts. I have been debating on it, and that's completely fine. You know, contracts are not for everyone. I had a buddy in Iowa who never does contracts because the residential people, it's just not popular there. It just depends on where you live. Every place is different. The way I do business here is probably completely different the way you guys do business down south, Midwest, whatever. So only do it, like I said, there's a few reasons why you should do it and shouldn't. Just look at what local companies are doing. If local companies do yearly contracts, then definitely get into that. If they don't, then maybe contracts aren't good for you, but maybe that could be a niche that your company does to kind of stand out from other ones. This one is from PHMS Lawn Care. What are you doing as far as new backpack blowers once the still goes down? If the still goes down, my stills last pretty long, to be honest. I'm pretty happy with them. To be honest, I'm kind of debating. I like my Echo equipment. I've been debating switching over to steel. I'm not sure. I have so much invested in Echo equipment, I might stick with them for a little bit longer. But I currently do, I think I do have one or two more backup blowers, steel backpack blowers. I think I do. And then I have that Echo one that Echo sent me. So if the still goes down, I have my Echo, and I believe I have another backup still, and I have plenty of replacement parts because I have some broken down stills that I can use as well. So that's what I'm planning on doing. For new backpack blowers, I'm not interested in switching to the BR700 yet. I have been looking at Red Max. I forgot the names. I know it's the 8500 or the 7500. I forgot the letters in front of it. Been thinking about going to Redbacks, not sure. Might see what Echo comes out with next. Let's see what they do. This one's from Sal Valenti. Sorry, dude. I'm so bad at names, so I'm going to be screwing up a lot of you guys with names. I'm going to start my business. I don't know if I'm registered for licenses. I have like 5 houses. What you recommend? If you're small, you know what? Let's do this. Depends on where you live. If you live in a really secluded area where you don't have to worry about LNI or the government coming and seeing if you are, legal, then I would probably just, if you're doing a lot of stuff in the backwoods, say like if you're doing a lot of residential stuff where you're not on the main road, maybe you don't have to get completely licensed yet. The one I would recommend it if eventually, I don't know how old you are. So depending on how old you are, if you're planning on getting a loan for a house in the future, the people, if you get a loan, they're going to want to see the past 2 years of business expenses and income. So if you're not licensed if you don't have a license in your state or in your city to do that, then that's not going to look good. So you want to try to get as legal and all that information in as fast as you can, because the longer they see that you're in business, the better you are. So honestly, I would recommend that you get a license, because I want to make sure that everyone's doing everything legally. That is a good thing. If you can try to stretch it and save a few bucks, if you're not making that much right now, if you're just starting out, if you're not making that much money, then I would hold off, but just try to be as legal as possible, I would recommend. Because if you plan on eventually growing your business even more and more, especially getting into commercial accounts and especially getting into condos, they're going to want to see a business license. They're going to want to see your numbers and make sure that you're completely legal. So that's another reason why I would recommend getting a license for that. Let's see. Let's see. So this one's from Mike Gip. Please read. That's one way to get my attention. Should I buy a commercial mower if the two X marks I have is 23 horsepower engine with fabricated welded decks? Should you get a commercial mower? If you can afford it, and if you have the income coming in, and if your business is growing at that rate, I do not recommend getting in debt. I was in debt. I got loans on both my Hustler mowers. Let's see, I had about almost $20,000 in debt just from those two mowers, and I am so happy I am debt free. I completely pay those off, and I pay everything in cash. I paid my Chevy, my recent Chevy, I paid that in cash. I paid my dump trailer completely in cash. I paid my walker mower completely in cash. I paid all my trailers completely in cash. Even my dump truck, I pay that in cash. The only things I've ever gotten loans for is my two Hustler mowers, and I am so happy to have those. So, if your business is growing at a steady pace and you are in need, I don't know what the condition of the mowers are, but yeah, sometimes it does help looking at that commercial equipment. But do not get yourself in debt. I truly recommend you do not do that, because you want to have good cash flow coming in unless you can afford it. Let's see. One man Mo, is this pre-recorded? No, it is not. This is completely live. It will be uploaded to YouTube afterwards, so you guys can take a look at that. Twin Trimmers, hey, how's it going, buddy? Alex A is live. Thank you for answering my question. Can't see you from Rosalio 484. The reason why we did that is because the internet connection is so bad that I decided not to do a video. This is basically kind of a podcast, so that's what we're doing. Twin Trimmers, how did you make that thing it's showing us? The screen? Basically just, I don't really have Photoshop, but I have something, it's Photo Elements, and I just made it from there. Just taking one thing after another. It takes a little bit of time to kind of learn how to do that. So, I mean, that's something I can probably talk about in another video or show you guys, but that's basically it. Really simple, not too much. You just got to get to know the programs. It's cutting time. Let's see. This is from Lawn Care Business Success. Big shout out to him. Be sure to please check him out, guys. I will be on his, I think, this coming week's podcast. So big shout out to him. He's answering questions. Okay, so great info. So this is from Lawn Care Business Success. Again, awesome tip, Jason. Specify in your contracts that only the property manager can discuss issues with you, not every person who lives there. This is gold. Thank you very much, buddy. Appreciate it, and I love the podcast with you. Which I think we did discuss that as well, because you don't want constant people coming up bothering you. Have you ever done, this is from I'm sorry, I don't know how to pronounce, KWAME. Have you ever done no contracts? If so, is there a major difference between the two? Yes, I do. There are clients that I have that I don't do contracts with. And that's why I said, if you can't get them on a contract, then try to push the weekly maintenance. I do not recommend, I highly recommend doing contracts for install work. That's one I would say do not do it with. Property maintenance, you don't have to do it with, depending if it's a commercial or condo association. But if it's a small little residential people, then just push a weekly account. So yes, I do have people that are not contracts, but they are weekly mowings. The Evan Project. Hey, Jason. Hey, buddy. How's it going? Thank you so much for tuning in. This was from KWAME again. So sorry, PayPal here is really good. I have heard PayPal, and I think that was one of the other programs. I forgot what I don't know if it's Google Pay or it is some kind of PayPal account, but that was one thing I did hear. It was great. This is from SLM Lawn Care. Hey, Jason, I run a small lawn care business with 40-yard weekly. All no contracts. Over half I have done for 3 years, wanting to add contracts to new customers. Should I go back and contract old customers? Good question, man. That's a really good question. And congratulations on your 40-yard weekly accounts. That's a good number. I would try to push that. Yeah, I would just say, hey, this is something we're looking at doing. Just because it helps us a little bit better. Like I said, this is where you're going to need your selling skills. You're going to want to do this. But yeah, you want to try to get people on contract accounts because, like I said, if you decide to in the future get a loan for a home, they want to see that. They want to see that steady income that these people are doing. So yeah, I would go back to your own clients because if you've been doing for a good amount of them for almost 3 years, you have built that trust up with them. And if you sell to them, hey, the contract account the contracts I really recommend and try to push, most likely they will sign with you if they trust you. So yes, I would highly recommend you do that and get them on contracts, and even the new people coming on, get them on contracts as well. This is from Julio from Lawn Care Business Success again. Hey Jason, I have a free 8-page lawn care maintenance contract PDF people can use and customize for their business on my website if anyone is interested. Thank you so much, buddy. I'm not sure. Go ahead and be sure to leave your email or not, so your web address in the comment box below. Or if not, hopefully you guys can find it on his webpage or his YouTube channel as well. This is from Thomas Schrader. Schrader, yeah, I think so. Whatever. What time of the year do you put in bids? January. Try to go before January. This is a really good question. So good question, Thomas. The reason why you want to get it before January is because usually contracts start over in January. Usually a lot of people like to start them in the beginning. And so you want to get your contracts in about 2 to 3 months before the end of the year. So try to go October, November, because some condo associations, they like to start receiving bids at that time, and they want to try to work that in with their budget. And then that's when they start accepting bids, and then they decide, usually in November, December, who the next guy is. So you want to get before January. If not, go to these clients, ask them, when do you guys start accepting bids? And then that way they can tell you when they're doing it. Because like it's happened to me in the past, a lot of condos, especially right here, they do it in January. Some don't. So ask them when they do it, because usually they will tell you, oh, we start accepting bids around this time. So, send in your bid at this time for next year or whatever. So yeah, do it before January. Mick Klusky Mowing, what's up? Hey buddy, how's it going? Riley Landis, how long have you been in the mowing business? Actually, in a couple days, I think in 2 or 3 days, it will be officially my 6 years in business that we've been doing mowing. I've been doing side work before that, so I've been doing this kind of stuff for about, I would say 9, almost 10 years, but officially in business doing what I'm doing 6 years. Extensive Gardens. Hi, Ambro. Hey, buddy. How's it going? His question is, did you get a landscaping qualification before or after you started your business? Is there a landscaping qualification or training? There is. I think it's different for every state, but there are. I don't think it's necessarily. I know for sure you can get it for irrigation. There are classes that you can take it to get it. I haven't done too much of that because we're just starting to get into that landscaping installation and irrigation stuff. So we're looking at going into classes and getting all that kind of stuff. So, no. So since I haven't done it yet, basically the reason why I haven't done it is because I want the work to come in. I don't want to get qualified, spend all the money for the classes, and then we don't have any work coming in. So if you're starting to get a lot of work for landscaping install coming in, then go ahead and start getting the qualifications. Sometimes it's good to have that, the licenses or the qualification before you do it. But if you don't have any work coming in, then there's no point in, it's kind of like owning a car and you don't even have your driver's license yet, once you get to that time where you're about ready to do it, then I would definitely recommend doing that as well. Daniel Rivera, can you explain the way you advertise? Good question. This is actually covered in the podcast from Julio at Lawn Care Business Success coming next week. I'll be sure to leave a link in that. But the ways that I advertise is strictly social media, which you guys have seen. I've had a lot of people recently tell me that they've seen my YouTube channel, they've seen my Instagram and Facebook. Social media is by far the best way to advertise because it's free. You get your information out there. And because of how much social media stuff I have done, when you type landscaping in Google, I am now the #1, sometimes #2 slot in my area. And that's beating companies that have been in business for over 20, 30 years. So be sure to check that out. But advertising, social media, another way is the logos on my trucks and trailers. That has really gotten me out there. I don't pay for phone book or any other services that ask to advertise for me because I can do it myself. So I try to do everything myself because it saves money, because sometimes advertising can get really high. But just look at simply putting logos on your trucks and trailers. And then, like I said, social media is the best way to do it as well. Start an Instagram account, start a YouTube. The more accounts you build up, the more Google will connect them all together, and then you'll get recognized pretty fast in your local area. So I would recommend those for advertising. And like I said, be sure to check out that podcast. Thomas, again, what did you start your employees at when you first started bringing people on? I started them at $10 an hour. That was a few years ago. Here in Washington, the minimum wage just went up to $11 an hour. So I currently start guys at 12. The last guy, I was paying him 16, which was quite a jump, and it was a lot of overhead. And like I said, he quit / got fired. He quit first, but it was a mutual agreement with both of us, because basically I hired him on hoping that he was going to help me grow my business and basically what he was bringing to the table. And I believe he truly oversold himself, but he was a good worker overall. So that is what I started guys at. I'm currently starting them at $12 an hour. And basically, if you work hard, you prove yourself here in my company, you will get raises. And I have no problem paying guys $15 an hour, but they have to prove it to me and they have to work up to that. I would not recommend starting guys off at a high wage. But I also don't recommend starting guys at a low wage. You don't want to start guys so low, because that brings in the bottom barrel. That brings in the losers. People just looking for a job or looking for some income. You want to find people, you want to start them at a good competitive price where they feel like they're appreciated. But you don't want to start them so high where they have nothing to work up to. Think about it like this. If you started a job at $10 an hour and you worked hard over 5 years and they kept giving you dollar raises every year because of your work ethic and how well you work, and now you're $15 an hour, you're going to appreciate that money a lot more because you had to prove yourself and work for it. Where if it was just given to you, hey, I'll start you off at 15, and you can't work out from there because the overhead's so much, then they start to slack off. And that's what I was starting to see with my last guy. Was his first month or two was amazing, and I gave him a dollar raise, and then his work ethic just kind of dropped from there. It just wasn't as much. I didn't see the passion like I did before. But anyways, hopefully that answered your question. Taylor Jacob, what keeps you motivated to stay in the lawn care business? To be honest, that's a great question, Taylor. I honestly love this. I have a passion for being outside and doing landscaping. One of the things that keeps me probably motivated the most is equipment. The new equipment that I buy, the dump trailer, the walker mowers, the new stuff that just comes out every single year, that keeps me motivated because it keeps, I have fun working with equipment, and so it keeps me going, because it's like, there's an even nicer or newer truck that I can that I can get later on, and I work towards that, and then guess what? There's a newer trailer. And so I would say equipment keeps me going, and then of course the more years I stay in business, the more income I make. And but not only that, it's not all about the money. It's just the passion I have for what I do. And just another thing is also other landscapers. Like on social media, watching the guys on YouTube or on Instagram, like seeing where I'm at and seeing where I can be because of other guys' nice equipment. That keeps me motivating too. But yeah, I have a real passion for what I do, and that's probably what's kept me in it the most. It's just the passion and the add-ons of the really nice equipment and the money and stuff that's piled on. But I've always had a passion for this kind of work. I never wanted an office job. I always want to be outside. I always want to be driving around. Love my trucks and my mowers. So that's what keeps me going. PHMS Lawn Care. Is it worth investing in an Echo PAS 280 and 2? Okay. All right. So here's the. Oh. All right, guys. Sorry. Looks like we lost connection for a second. So this is the next question. It's from CNK Clan 2. What length do you normally do your residential maintenance contracts? 3, 6, 12 months? All 12 months. I try to push that. I do have a couple 8th. I have 1 8-month contract, but try to push that 12. Recommend that if you can. If you weren't here when we discussed that earlier, please go ahead and listen to the video again, which will be uploaded to YouTube. And then that way we discussed why 12-month is way better than 8-month. I've never done a 3 or 6. I've never actually had anyone do 3 or 6 months. The only time you would ever do that would probably be snow removal contracts or landscaping. But for property maintenance, I always recommend 12. LNS, hi. Hey, buddy. Junior's Garden Landscape. What kind of paperwork do you need for yearly contracts? Thanks. You don't really need too much. You just basically need whatever contract you type up. Sometimes commercial accounts and condo associations will want a certificate of liability, insurance. They will want your auto insurance. Sometimes they want additional information. So depending on who you're with, they will recommend that. But basically residential stuff, just the paperwork of the information that we talked about earlier is all you would really need for a yearly contract. McCloskey Mowing, I was wondering, what do you think is the best mower for starting out mowing? Oh my gosh, this is how you start a fight on YouTube or Instagram. Gosh, dude, to be honest, it depends. It really does depend because, like I said, this is where this is where you can get in some really good fights. Because, some people are so loyal to Skag, Exmark, Walker. I mean, it really depends on your local area. We have done a video in the past about what mower is best for you. Personally, for me, it really depends on where you live and the type of lawns you maintain. I love my Walker mower, and I'm going to represent Walker, and I'm going to recommend it. Do I recommend that to you? No. Some of the biggest companies I would recommend is Exmark, Walker, Skag. Toro's okay. It's not my favorite. I've heard good things about Gravely mowers. I think I'm missing a couple. Yeah, I would say it depends on what your local dealer sells, what's popular in your area, because basically whatever your dealer's selling, you want to kind of go with. If they're selling Skag, that means they can work on Skag, and that also means they have Skag replacement parts. If you buy a Skag mower, but your dealer's an Exmark or some other brand, they can't get that to you. So, kind of sucks. So yeah, it just depends on where you live and what's popular in your area. All right, we're going to go ahead and answer just a few more questions, then we'll go ahead and call this good, guys. Thank you for the reply, mate. You're welcome. Extensive Gardens, appreciate it. This is from Thomas again. Do you sub out work such as tree work? I've done this and has been very profitable for my company. Just an estimate for a tree company, and they charge an extra 100 to 2. I have done some subbing out, not as much. I like to do the work myself because I can make more profit that way. That is one way to, you can sub out. I prefer to do it because I like to learn how to do as much as I can in work. So to answer your question, yes, I have subbed it out. I've subbed out certain work before, but I try to do everything I can by myself before I have to do that, because the subbing out work, if you don't do it correctly, you can really screw yourself over. I've had that happen in the past with a friend. He was subbing out work and people weren't claiming the taxes and stuff, and it came back and bite him or something like that. But yes, to answer your question, I have done that. This is from CNK Clan 2. You can find a lot of good commercial machines on Craigslist. I completely agree. That's where I'm selling my stuff right now. This is KWAME. Sorry, man. I'm 15. Congratulations, buddy. Do you have any advice for building my company even though I'm in school? Just keep at it. Get in social media. Get involved in social media as you can, because that's free advertisement for you. You don't have probably the money or income right now to pay for your own website or pay for any other advertising or even logos. So get into social media. That's how you're gonna do really well. Start to look for guys to look up to. So there's some good guys on YouTube, some good guys on Instagram, and just watch videos like this and just get some good ideas from good, trustable sources. And I wouldn't say my information is the greatest. I feel like I do have some good information to give, but I know that there's some guys on YouTube and stuff that have been in business way longer than me that has way better, advice to give because they've been in the game a little bit longer. So, but you're starting at 15. For one, I just want to congratulate you because that's a big deal. I remember I didn't think about starting my business at 15. I think I started at 17, 18. I had the idea. So for one, you are on the right track of starting your own company. It will be hard. I will say this: it is challenging. If you have a passion for what you're doing in the lawn care landscaping industry, then it will push you through those tough times. But yeah, like I said, if this is something you want to do, just work at it. I think listening to me and what I do, or the advice that I can give is, for one, a smart idea. Start listening to guys that have been in the game for a long time and have some really good advice to do. That's what I did. I was listening to guys that were making millions of dollars a year, and that's who I get my information from. Sometimes you can work up your way to that with people that you listen to, but just get some trustable sources and start getting some information from them. Let's see. Deer, this is from CNK Clan 2. Deer, Skag, Exmark are big here in the East Texas. Yeah, I can see how that is. Here in the state of Washington, Exmark's pretty, in my local area, Hustler was pretty popular just because we only had one dealer and that's what they sold. But out here, John Deere lawn tractors are really popular, but for zero turns, I would say Exmark is by far one of the biggest. Exmark walkers are getting really popular out here. And not really John Deere zero turns. They're not really popular around here. So, last question from Junior's Garden Landscape: are you mainly one-man crew, or how many people you hire? What's a reasonable amount? Sorry, I just lost it. Oh gosh, sorry. There was a lot more questions down below. What's a reasonable amount for someone with no experience? I am currently a one-man crew because my last guy, like I just said, just quit. So right now I'm going solo, but it's the best time for me to go solo because it's the winter time and there's absolutely nothing. I do need to find someone within the next month because things will be picking up really soon. So yes, I am a one-man crew. I did have, I've had at one point 2 guys working for me, but what I personally try to do is, I think this answers your next question, what's a reasonable amount for someone to, for a reasonable amount, if you're working over 80 hours a week by yourself and just tearing yourself up, you need to find someone to hire, like at least part-time. What you don't want to do is you don't want to overwork yourself so much to where you can't do anything. Like that's really bad. So basically, when the income's right, when your business is growing, and when basically you have stretched yourself so much where you know for sure you need help, then that's when you know for sure you'll need someone. I say try to go as much as you can, because hiring people and doing it legally through L&I and getting the right insurance, it becomes extremely expensive. Basically, my guy, I was paying him $16 an hour, but he was really costing me almost $19 an hour, and it's a lot of money. So try to go as much as you can by yourself and do that. So that was a good question. Extensive Gardens, are you going to collaborate with another landscaper on YouTube like Top Notch and Chant, B&B and Andy? Yes, I've been actually reaching out to some other guys. I've been reaching out to Kevin from Fall River. I've reached out to Top Notch because they are YouTube partners with me as well. Top Notch from Fall River. So, of course, we've all been busy, but I've been slowly doing that. With me being out here on the West Coast, it's hard to do it because I'm out here. I'm as far west as you can basically go. and all these other guys are basically the Midwest or East Coast. So it's hard for me to collaborate with them because of that reason, and I'm still trying to figure out this whole live situation, but I have slowly been reaching out to them so we can start doing that as well and start connecting. And I am hoping this year that I will be going to the GIE Expo. I've always wanted to go, but we'll just see how business is this year. So thank you for that question. So we're only going to answer 3 more from Lopez, John, and CJ, and then that's it. This from Lopez. What do you think of Shindawe equipment? I've been thinking about them because basically I think Shindawe is owned by Echo, and I do anything that's the color red I'm a huge fan of. So I was thinking about switching over to that, to be honest, or at least looking into them. But since Echo's a little bit bigger brand, and since I'm an Echo ambassador, I've been kind of sticking with them. So, but I have been thinking about Shindawe equipment, to be honest. It's very similar to Echo, so I'd probably stay in that way. But this is from John. What day do you start your billing cycle? First of every month. First to the end of the month is when we do it. If we do any side work for a client, we usually, so say if we had a yearly contract account, we usually include the bill in with that month when we do at the end of the month. The only other thing is if there's a one-time client, we bill them the day after. So yearly counts, we include that in with the yearly price, and then we bill them at the end of the month. One-time person, we just bill them right away. CJ, best decision you ever made in your business? Oh gosh, that's a really good question. I think, because I don't know if there's ever one. There's